The alien fleet appeared at the edge of human space without warning. Commander Vracus sat in his command chair aboard the massive ship called Eternal Dominion. He had conquered 47 different alien worlds in his long career. This would be his 48th victory, and he expected it to be easy. The aliens were called the Zelthari. They had gray skin, large black eyes, and bodies that were thin and tall. They wore dark uniforms covered in medals and symbols of rank. Vracus was proud of his empire. They were the strongest force in this part of the galaxy, and no one had ever defeated them in battle. His scanning officer, a young male named Kelvor, worked at his station with quick movements. The orders were simple. Find the human ships, scan them, and learn everything about their weapons and defenses. Then the fleet would attack and take over their planet. A human warship appeared on the main screen. It was called the USS Constitution, and it looked different from other alien ships that Vracus had seen. The hull was smooth and dark, with strange symbols painted on the side. Weapons covered every surface, and the ship moved through space with purpose and confidence. Kelvor began the scanning process. Energy beams invisible to the eye reached out and touched the human ship, reading every detail. The information started flowing into the Zelthari computers. At first, everything seemed normal. But then Kelvor's face changed color. His gray skin became almost white. "Commander," Kelvor said, his voice shaking. "These readings cannot be correct. I am running the scan again." Vracus leaned forward in his chair. "What are you seeing, Lieutenant?" "The power output from their reactor is enormous, much larger than anything we expected. Their technological level should not allow this." Kelvor's hands moved across his controls, checking the numbers again and again. "And their weapon systems, Commander. They are beyond anything we have in our arsenal." Other officers on the bridge stopped their work and looked at the scanning station. Fear began to spread through the command center like a cold wind. "Show me the details," Vracus ordered. Kelvor transferred the data to the main screen. Numbers and diagrams filled the display. Vracus felt his blood turn cold as he read the information. The human ship had weapons that used kinetic energy at speeds close to the speed of light. They had explosive devices that split atoms to release devastating power. Their defensive shields used magnetic fields stronger than anything the Zelthari could produce. "How is this possible?" asked Captain Theron, Vracus's second-in-command. "Our intelligence said these humans only achieved faster than light travel a short time ago. They should still be using primitive weapons." Kelvor's voice was quiet when he spoke. "Commander, there is more. I am detecting over 1,000 military vessels in their home system. All of them appear to have similar capabilities to this one ship." Silence filled the bridge. 1,000 ships. The Zelthari fleet had brought 200 vessels to this invasion, and they had thought that would be more than enough. Now they realized they were facing an enemy that outnumbered them 5-1, with better technology. Vracus made a quick decision. "Open a communication channel. All frequencies." On board the USS Constitution, Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched the alien fleet maintain their distance. He was a tall man with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had served in the Earth Space Navy for 15 years and had trained for this moment his entire career. First contact with an alien species. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Amy Chen, monitored her sensors carefully. She was young but skilled, with black hair tied back in a neat bun. "Captain, they just finished a full scan of our ship." "Very thorough?" "They looked at everything." Jake nodded slowly. "Good. Let them see what we have. Maybe it will make them think twice about causing trouble." "What is our weapons status, Commander Harris?" Commander Peter Harris was a broad-shouldered man with red hair and a thick beard. He checked his displays before answering. "All railgun batteries are charged and ready, sir. Nuclear torpedoes are loaded in tubes 1 through 6. Particle beam cannons are online and tracking the alien fleet. We are ready for anything they try." "Excellent. Helm, maintain our current position. Comms, any response to our hails?" Lieutenant Ben Cole, a thin man with glasses and nervous energy, shook his head. "No response yet, Captain. I have tried every frequency we know. They are not answering." Jake drummed his fingers on his command chair. This was not how he had hoped first contact would go. Humanity had dreamed about meeting aliens for hundreds of years. They had imagined peaceful exchanges of knowledge and culture. Instead, they had a fleet of warships sitting at their border, scanning them like they were prey. "Sir, incoming transmission," Ben suddenly announced. "They are using multiple frequencies. The computer is translating now." A face appeared on the main screen. It was Vracus, though Jake did not know his name yet. The alien looked nervous despite trying to hide it. When he spoke, the computer translated his words into English, though the voice sounded strange and mechanical. I am Commander Vracus of the Zelthari Empire. We come in peace to establish relations with your species. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss cooperation between our peoples. Jake glanced at his first officer, Commander Lisa Hayes. She was a woman with short blonde hair and sharp green eyes. She raised one eyebrow and whispered, "Interesting. They show up with a battle fleet but claim they want peace." "My thoughts exactly," Jake whispered back. Then he addressed the alien commander in a loud, clear voice. "Commander Vracus, I am Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Space Navy. We are always interested in peaceful contact with new species. However, I notice you brought quite a large military force to this first meeting. Would you like to explain why?" There was a long pause before Vracus answered. "It is simply a precaution. Standard procedure when we encounter unknown civilizations. I promise you, we mean no harm to your people." "I am glad to hear that," Jake replied, keeping his voice friendly but firm, "because I would hate for anyone to make a mistake that could not be fixed. Why don't we arrange a diplomatic meeting? You can send a shuttle to our ship, or we can send one to yours." The transmission cut off as the aliens discussed among themselves. Ben turned to Jake with concern on his face. "Sir, I am picking up a lot of encrypted communications between their ships. Heavy traffic. They seem upset about something." Amy studied her tactical display. "Captain, I have finished analyzing their fleet composition. Their ships use plasma weapons and energy shields. Pretty standard technology. Honestly, sir, I do not think they could get through our armor with what they are showing us. Our railguns would tear through their shields given enough time." "Let us hope it does not come to that," Jake said quietly. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Vracus was in an emergency meeting with his senior officers. They gathered in a secure room away from the rest of the crew. "We must withdraw immediately," Theron said firmly. "We are completely outmatched. One of their vessels equals 5 of ours, maybe more. They have hundreds of these ships. We cannot win this battle." Admiral Nexus appeared as a hologram, transmitted from another ship in the fleet. He was older than Vracus, with scars on his face from past battles. "If we run away, we show weakness. The Empire does not retreat from primitive species." "These are not primitives," Theron shouted, his composure breaking. "Did you see the scan results? They use atomic weapons in space combat. They accelerate solid projectiles to near light speed. Their single ship could destroy a planet." Vracus raised his hand for silence. "There is something else to consider. If we attack and lose, we reveal our weakness to the entire galaxy. If we retreat now, we might find other options later. But if we engage them diplomatically, we can learn more about them. Knowledge can be as powerful as weapons." Kelvor spoke up carefully. "You want to pretend to be their friends while we spy on them?" "I want to avoid starting a war that we cannot win," Vracus corrected. "Not yet. Not until we understand them better and find their weaknesses." The officers looked at each other. Finally, Theron nodded. "It is risky, but it is smarter than attacking them now." Vracus turned to the communications officer. "Respond to the humans. Accept their offer of a diplomatic meeting." The message went back to the Constitution. Jake received the confirmation and allowed himself a small smile. "Looks like they decided to talk instead of fight. That is good news for everyone." Lisa leaned closer and spoke quietly. "Do you think they were really planning to attack us?" "Their fleet composition suggests they were," Jake replied. "But after scanning our ship, they changed their minds." "Commander Harris, what do you think scared them the most?" Peter grinned. "Probably the nuclear torpedoes. Most species freak out when they realize we put nukes on everything." "Well, it works," Jake said. "Set up the diplomatic meeting. Let us see if we can make some friends out there." The bridge crew went to work, preparing for humanity's first diplomatic contact with an alien civilization. None of them knew yet that this moment would change the entire galaxy forever. Part 2. The diplomatic meeting took place on a small space station that the humans built in just 2 days. This fact alone shocked Vracus and his team. 2 days to construct a functioning station in the middle of space. Most species would need weeks or months for such a project. The speed of human engineering was just another warning sign. The station was simple but effective. It had a large meeting room with windows showing both fleets in the distance. Vracus arrived with a small group of advisors and military analysts. They wore their formal uniforms, trying to look confident and strong. Inside, Vracus felt nervous. Jake brought his own team. Lisa Hayes walked beside him, along with a diplomatic specialist named Karen White, and 4 security personnel led by Sergeant Danny Cruz. Danny was a muscular man with dark skin and watchful eyes. He and his team carried weapons openly, another human custom that made the Zelthari uncomfortable. The 2 groups met in the center of the room. Vracus was taller than Jake, but somehow the human captain seemed to fill more space. Jake extended his hand in a gesture that confused Vracus, until one of his cultural advisors quickly explained it was a human greeting. Vracus took Jake's hand and shook it awkwardly. The human grip was firm and strong. "Commander Vracus, thank you for meeting with us," Jake said with a smile. "This is an important moment for both our peoples. I hope it is the start of a long and peaceful relationship." "As do I, Captain Morrison," Vracus replied through his translator device. They sat down at a large table. For the next several hours, they discussed various topics: trade possibilities, cultural exchanges, scientific cooperation, and territorial boundaries. But Karen noticed something interesting. Every time she mentioned Earth's military or industrial capacity, the Zelthari became very focused. They asked careful questions about human history, especially about wars and conflicts. "Your species has fought many wars among yourselves?" Vracus asked at one point. "Yes, throughout our entire history," Jake confirmed. "Though we have mostly moved past that now. We unified as a species about 30 years ago. Before that, we had separate nations that sometimes came into conflict." "And your weapons," Vracus continued carefully. "They were developed to fight other humans?" "Originally, yes. We built them to protect ourselves from each other." "Why do you ask?" Vracus hesitated. His cultural training told him to be diplomatic, but his military training wanted direct answers. "It is unusual. Most species develop advanced military technology only after they encounter hostile aliens in space. You developed everything before you even left your own solar system." Lisa leaned forward, her green eyes sharp. "Commander Vracus, let me be direct. Are you asking because you are worried about what humanity might do in a war?" The alien's body language showed discomfort. His shoulders tensed and his eyes looked away briefly before returning to meet Lisa's gaze. "I simply wish to understand your species better." Jake decided to be honest. "Then let me help you understand, Commander. Humans do not look for fights. We do not want war. But our history taught us hard lessons. We learned that if you are weak, someone will take advantage of you. So we stay strong. Every weapon on our ships exists because we needed it to survive against each other. We are not proud of that history, but we learned from it." "And now that you are unified," Vracus asked quietly, "what will you do with all that military power?" "We will explore the galaxy. We will defend our people and our friends, and hopefully we will never need to use our weapons in anger." Jake's expression became serious. "But if we do need them, Commander, we will use every single weapon we have without hesitation. I want to make sure that is very clear." The message was received. Vracus nodded slowly, understanding the subtle warning behind Jake's polite words. After the meeting ended, Vracus returned to his ship deep in thought. He called another council of war with his senior officers. "The situation is worse than we initially believed," Vracus began. "These humans are not just technologically advanced. They think about war differently than any species we have encountered." Admiral Nexus appeared on the hologram again. "Explain what you mean." "Every race we have ever conquered developed their weapons in response to external threats," Vracus said. "They built military forces to fight us or other aliens. The humans built their weapons to fight themselves. For thousands of years, they waged war against their own kind. They refined their technology and tactics against opponents who thought exactly like them." Theron understood immediately. "You are saying they have been training for war their entire existence?" "More than that," Vracus continued. "They have been training against the most dangerous possible enemy, themselves. They know every trick, every strategy, every weakness because they have used all of them against each other. And now they have unified all that knowledge and experience into a single military force." Kelvor pulled up data on the main display. "I have been analyzing the information they shared with us. Their public records, their history files, their educational materials. Commander, their history is terrifying. They have fought thousands of major wars. They have developed detailed strategies for every type of combat imaginable. On land, on water, in the air, and now in space." "Show me," ordered Admiral Nexus. The display changed to show human military history, ancient battles with swords and spears, naval warfare on their oceans with massive ships firing explosive shells, Aircraft fighting in their skies, dropping bombs on cities below, and then the nuclear weapons. The terrible, awesome power of splitting atoms. They documented everything, Kelvor explained. They study their own violent history like we study science. Every battle, every mistake, every victory is recorded and analyzed. They have schools dedicated entirely to teaching the art of war. Vracus added his own observations. That ship we scanned, the Constitution, is the result of thousands of years of humans trying to find the most efficient ways to kill other humans. And they succeeded, multiple times, with multiple different approaches. Now all that knowledge has been focused outward toward the stars. Admiral Nexus was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy. The High Council will never authorize a retreat based on fear and speculation. They will want proof. Then we should give them proof, Vracus suggested. Request a cultural exchange. Ask to observe a human military exercise. Once the Council sees what we are dealing with, they will understand the danger. 3 days later, the request was approved. Jake was surprised when the Zelthari asked to watch a human training exercise, but Earth Command saw it as an opportunity. Show the aliens what humanity could do. Make them respect our strength. We will run a full combat simulation, Jake told his crew. 3 destroyers, live ammunition, realistic enemy drones. Show them what we can do. Vracus arrived on the Constitution with a team of military observers. Jake met them personally and escorted them to a special observation deck with a perfect view of the exercise area. Thank you for allowing us to witness this, Captain, Vracus said. Transparency builds trust, Jake replied. Besides, we are proud of what our people can do. You will be watching 3 of our destroyers run through a combat scenario. They will face simulated enemy ships using live ammunition against target drones. Live ammunition? One of the Zelthari analysts asked nervously. We train the way we fight, Jake explained. It makes us better when the situation is real. The exercise began. 3 human destroyers moved into position. They were named Eagle, Falcon, and Hawk. Their target was a field of automated drones programmed to act like enemy ships. What happened next would be discussed in Zelthari military academies for generations to come. The human ships moved with perfect coordination. They communicated in quick bursts of data, adjusted their positions with minimal commands, and attacked with focused aggression. Railgun rounds shot across space at incredible speeds. Each shot was calculated precisely. The human ships never stayed still, constantly moving to make themselves harder to hit while optimizing their own firing angles. When the drones tried to surround the Eagle, the other 2 destroyers immediately shifted position. They created a defensive formation that eliminated the threat in seconds. When the simulation introduced enemy missiles, the human point defense systems destroyed them with casual efficiency. Lasers and small railguns tracked and eliminated every incoming projectile. But what truly horrified the Zelthari observers was the nuclear torpedo demonstration. Simulation. Introducing heavy capital ship target, announced the exercise. Coordinator over the communication channel. A massive target drone appeared. It was the size of a small moon, designed to simulate an enemy battleship or space station. Without any hesitation, the Hawk broke formation, accelerated to maximum speed, and launched a single torpedo. The Zelthari observers gasped when their sensors identified the weapon signature. Is that? Kelvor could not finish his sentence. His voice failed him. Thermonuclear warhead, Jake confirmed calmly. 50 megatons. This is actually one of our smaller models. We have much larger ones for tougher targets. The torpedo struck the target and detonated. The blast created a miniature sun that completely vaporized the massive drone. The electromagnetic pulse from the explosion would have disabled any ship caught within its radius. The shockwave would have torn apart anything not protected by heavy shielding. You use a Tommy. Part 3. Vracus sat in his private quarters aboard the Eternal Dominion, staring at the data from the human military exercise. The numbers did not lie, but they were hard to believe. He had seen many different alien militaries in his long career. He had studied their tactics, learned their weaknesses, and defeated them all. But the humans were different. They were not just strong. They were built for war in a way that other species were not. He activated his personal computer and began preparing his report for the High Council. This would be the most important document he had ever written. The fate of the Zelthari Empire might depend on it. Computer, begin recording. Priority Alpha transmission to the High Council. The computer acknowledged with a soft tone. Vracus took a deep breath and began. Honored Council members, I am submitting my formal assessment of the human military threat level. After extensive observation, analysis, and direct interaction, I must recommend immediate cessation of all hostile intentions toward the human species. He paused, knowing how controversial his next words would be. I have concluded that the human species represents an existential threat to the Zelthari Empire should we engage them in warfare. This conclusion is based on multiple factors that I will now explain in detail. Vracus pulled up the technical data on his screen. First, human technology. While they achieved faster than light travel only recently, their weapons technology exceeds our own in several critical areas. They have successfully weaponized nuclear forces to a degree we abandoned centuries ago as too dangerous. Their kinetic weapons achieve velocities we believed impossible for projectile-based systems. Each railgun round carries enough energy to penetrate our best armor. Their industrial capacity allows them to produce military vessels at a rate 5 times faster than our own shipyards. He moved to the next section of his report. Second, human tactical doctrine. This is perhaps the most concerning factor. Unlike every species we have encountered, humans spent their entire developmental history at war with themselves. They did not wait for external threats to develop military capabilities. They built weapons and refined tactics for thousands of years, fighting against opponents who thought exactly like them. This has created a military culture unlike anything else in the galaxy. Vracus played video from the training exercise. Third, human psychology and approach to warfare. They do not view war as a last resort. They view it as something to be studied, perfected, and prepared for at all times. They maintain massive standing militaries during peacetime. They run constant training exercises with live ammunition. They study historical battles with the same dedication we give to pure scientific research. War is not something they fear. It is something they have mastered. His expression became grim as he continued. Fourth and most concerning is human escalation doctrine. When I asked Captain Morrison about their use of nuclear weapons in space combat, he seemed confused by my question. To humans, every weapon they possess is simply another tool to be used when necessary. They have no cultural taboos against any particular form of warfare. No weapons are considered too terrible to use. If attacked, they will respond with overwhelming force using every capability at their disposal. Vracus leaned closer to the camera. Based on these observations, I must conclude that any military engagement with humanity would result in catastrophic losses for the Empire. Even if we achieved initial victories through surprise or superior numbers, their industrial capacity and willingness to escalate would eventually overwhelm us. They have over 1,000 military vessels in their home system alone. Each vessel is comparable to or better than our best warships. Intelligence suggests they are expanding their fleet at an alarming rate. Within 5 years, they may have 5,000 ships. Within 10 years, perhaps 10,000. He straightened in his chair. Honored Council, I have served the Empire for 30 years. I have participated in 14 conquest campaigns. I have never retreated from an inferior force. I have never recommended avoiding conflict out of fear. But this is not fear speaking. This is logic and reason. The humans are not inferior. They are superior in the ways that matter most for warfare. They are not unprepared. They have been preparing for 10,000 years. They are a warrior species that has perfected the art of combat, and they are very good at it. Vracus took a final breath before his conclusion. I strongly recommend we establish peaceful diplomatic relations immediately and permanently. We should seek them as allies, not enemies. We should trade with them, learn from them, and benefit from their friendship. Because if we make them our enemies, we will lose. The Empire will not survive that loss. This I state with complete certainty. End recording. Transmit immediately to the High Council with maximum priority. The message was sent through faster than light communication. It would reach the Zelthari homeworld in hours. Vracus knew the Council would be shocked. Some would be angry, but he hoped they would be wise enough to listen. While Vracus worried about his report, Jake was having his own important conversation. He sat in a secure communication room, talking via video link with Admiral Helen Grant. She was the overall commander of Earth Space Forces, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. How did the demonstration go with our alien friends? Helen asked. I think we made quite an impression, Jake replied. They watched our combat exercise and looked like we had shown them the end of the world, especially when we used the nuclear torpedoes. You did include that in the exercise plan, Admiral. I know. I approved it myself. Helen smiled slightly, but I bet it scared them pretty badly. Most alien species do not throw around nuclear weapons as casually as we do, but that was the point. Better they respect our capabilities now than test them in actual combat later. Do you think they were planning to attack us? Intelligence analysis says yes. That fleet composition was designed for invasion, not exploration. They brought troop carriers, bombardment ships, and support vessels. That is not how you show up for a friendly first contact, but after what you showed them, I doubt they are still considering an attack. Jake nodded thoughtfully. What do we do next? We keep building ships. We keep training our people. We stay ready for anything, but we also extend every diplomatic courtesy to the Zelthari. We show them we can be good friends. Just friends who happen to have really powerful weapons. Helen paused. You know the old saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. More like speak politely and carry a planet killer, Jake said with a slight smile. Exactly, but the principle is the same. Project strength while offering friendship. Make them want to be our allies because being our enemy is too costly. On the Zelthari homeworld far across the galaxy, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The council chamber was an ancient building carved from living rock. The Empire's leaders had made decisions in this room for over 1,000 years. Today they faced a decision that would affect the Empire's future. High Chancellor Morvis stood at the center of the circular chamber. He was old, even by Zelthari standards, with skin that had faded to almost white with age. But his mind was still sharp, and his voice still commanded respect. Council members, we have all reviewed Commander Vrakis's report. We have all seen the video evidence from the human military exercise. The question before us is simple. How do we respond to this new species? Councillor Praxis spoke first. He was younger and more aggressive, representing the military faction of the Council. We cannot simply ignore them. They will expand. They will encounter our territory eventually. We must act now while they are still limited to one system. And do what? Asked Councillor Mira, an older female who led the diplomatic faction. Attack them. You saw the same report I did. We would lose such a war. We do not know that for certain, Praxis argued. One military exercise does not tell us everything about their capabilities. Perhaps they were showing off. Perhaps their entire fleet is not as capable as that one demonstration. Morvis held up a hand for silence. Commander Vrakis is our most experienced military leader. He has never been wrong in his tactical assessments. If he says we cannot win, we should listen carefully. But Councillor Praxis raises a valid point. We cannot simply ignore the humans. So what do we do? Mira stood. We offer them friendship. We establish trade relations. We share some of our technology in exchange for some of theirs. We make ourselves valuable to them. When they expand into the galaxy, they will remember who their first friends were. And if they decide to conquer us anyway, Praxis challenged, then we hope we are valuable enough that they choose to spare us, Morvis said bluntly, because the alternative based on Vrakis's report is annihilation. They have shown us what they can do. We should be grateful they are willing to talk instead of simply attacking. Many younger species would have fired first and asked questions later. He looked around the chamber at each council member. I have been High Chancellor for 40 years. I have led this empire through war and peace, through prosperity and hardship. I have made many difficult decisions, but this may be the most important one. We have encountered a species that is stronger than us. We can choose pride and possible destruction, or we can choose wisdom and survival. I know which one I prefer. The vote was called. One by one, Part 4 months had passed since first contact with the Zelthari Empire. The relationship between the two species had grown surprisingly well. Trade routes had been established. Cultural exchanges were happening regularly. Human engineers were learning about Zelthari energy shield technology, while Zelthari scientists were amazed by human industrial techniques. Jake found himself on the Zelthari homeworld, a planet called Zelthar Prime. It was beautiful in an alien way. The sky was more purple than blue, and 3 small moons were visible even during the day. The cities were built with tall, graceful towers that seemed to grow from the ground like crystal trees. He was here for a major diplomatic summit. Representatives from 12 different alien species had gathered to discuss forming a mutual defense alliance. Earth had been invited as a potential member, which was quite an honor for such a new spacefaring civilization. Ambassador Paul Grant led the human delegation. He was an older man with white hair and a kind face, but his eyes were sharp with intelligence. He had been a diplomat for 30 years on Earth before taking this position. Next to him sat Jake, who was there as the military advisor. Also present was Karen White, who had become Earth's chief specialist on alien cultures. The summit took place in a vast circular chamber with a domed ceiling that showed the stars above. Representatives from various species sat around a massive round table. The Zelthari were there, of course, along with the Corvin collective, who looked like large otters that walked upright. There were the Silicates, beings made of living crystal who communicated through musical tones. The Metharians breathed different air and sat in special sealed environments, and many others, each unique and fascinating. The discussion had been going on for hours. The main topic was how to structure a mutual defense agreement. Several species wanted protection from pirates and raiders who operated in the lawless regions of space. Others worried about potential threats from unknown aggressive civilizations. "The question before us," said the Zelthari representative, an older male named Korvax, "is how we organize our defensive capabilities. The humans have expressed interest in participating. However, several members have raised concerns." A representative from the Corvin collective spoke up. His name was Ambassador Plenix, and he spoke through a device that translated his chittering sounds into words. "Our concern is not with human intentions. We believe humans are genuinely interested in peace. Our concern is with human military capabilities. Your forces are, quite frankly, overwhelming compared to most species here. Some of us worry that you could dominate any defensive alliance," Paul responded in his calm, diplomatic voice. "We understand those concerns completely, Ambassador Plenix. Earth has no desire to dominate anyone or anything. We simply want to be part of the galactic community. We want to have friends and allies. But we will not apologize for being prepared to defend ourselves and our friends." A Silicate representative chimed in with musical notes that the translator converted to speech. "You have only been unified for a short time. Your species fought terrible wars among yourselves for thousands of years. How can we know your unity will last? What if humans start fighting each other again?" Jake had been sitting quietly, but now he leaned forward. "That is a fair question. Let me try to answer it honestly. Yes, we fought each other for a long time. We made terrible mistakes. We hurt each other badly. But we learned from those mistakes. We saw what happened when we fought, and we decided it was not worth it anymore. We are not perfect. We still have disagreements and arguments. But we solve them with words now, not weapons." Brachus, who was also present as a Zelthari military liaison, added his perspective. "I have spent considerable time studying humanity over the past 6 months. I have visited their world. I have spoken with their leaders and their common citizens. I believe their unity is genuine. More importantly, they understand something that many of us have forgotten. Peace is not maintained through hope and kind words alone. Peace is maintained through strength that makes others think twice before attacking." "You sound like you have become an advocate for the humans," Plenix observed. "I have become a realist," Brachus corrected. "After carefully analyzing their capabilities and their history, I concluded that humanity would make far better allies than enemies. I still believe that completely. They are strong, but they are not cruel. They are capable, but they are not aggressive. They are exactly the kind of species we should want in a defensive alliance." The discussion continued for several more hours. Different species raised different concerns. Some worried about command structure. Others worried about territorial rights. A few worried about the cost of maintaining a joint fleet. Finally, as the third moon began to rise in the purple sky outside, they reached a compromise. A mutual defense pact would be established. Each species would contribute ships to a joint fleet based on their capabilities. Command would rotate among member species every 2 years. Earth would contribute ships like every other member, but no single species would control more than 20% of the joint fleet. It was, everyone agreed, a fair solution. The treaty was drafted and signed by all 12 species. Humanity had officially become part of the galactic community. That evening, Jake and Vrachis stood on an observation deck in the Zelthari diplomatic complex. They looked out at the alien city below, its lights twinkling like stars on the ground. "Did you really think you could conquer us when you first arrived?" Jake asked quietly. Vrachis was silent for a long moment. "Yes, I am not proud of it, but yes. Our intelligence suggested you were primitive. We thought you would be easy to defeat. By the time we understood the truth, we were already committed to the encounter. I am very grateful it ended the way it did instead of with violence. We were not looking for a fight either, Jake admitted. But we were absolutely ready for one if it became necessary. I know. That is what makes your species dangerous. You are always ready. You never relax your guard. You always assume the worst could happen and prepare for it. Vracus turned to look at Jake directly. May I ask you something personal? Go ahead. When you first saw our fleet, did you feel fear? Jake thought about the question carefully. I felt caution. I felt concern for my crew and my ship. But I would not say I felt fear. I trusted our training. I trusted our equipment. I trusted that if you attacked, we would fight well and probably win. Fear does not really help in those situations. It just clouds your judgment. That, Vracus said quietly, is exactly what frightened us the most. You do not fear war because you have mastered it completely. It is just another problem to be solved. Another challenge to be overcome. Most species fear war because they know how terrible it is. Humans know how terrible it is too, but you do it anyway when necessary. Is that a bad thing? Jake asked. No, actually it is probably a good thing. It means you can be trusted to defend your allies without hesitation. It means enemies will think very carefully before attacking. It means the peace will last longer. Vracus managed something that might have been a smile. We chose correctly when we decided to be your friends instead of your enemies. I'm glad you think so, Jake said, returning the smile. They stood together in comfortable silence, two former potential enemies who had become genuine friends, looking out at a galaxy that was changing rapidly. Back on Earth, news of the defensive alliance was met with celebration. Humanity had officially joined the galactic community. They were no longer alone in the universe. They had allies, trading partners, and friends among the stars. Admiral Helen Grant watched the news broadcast from her office at Space Force Command. She felt proud of what they had achieved. First contact could have gone terribly wrong. The Zelthari could have attacked. Humanity could have responded with violence. Instead, both sides had chosen wisdom over aggression. But Helen was not naive. She knew this peace was fragile. It depended on humanity maintaining its strength. It depended on other species respecting that strength. And it depended on humans continuing to act responsibly with the power they possessed. She activated her communication system and sent a message to all Space Force. Commanders, this is Admiral Grant. Today, we celebrate joining the galactic community. Today we are happy about our new alliances. But tomorrow we go back to work. We continue building ships. We continue training our crews. We continue preparing for every possible threat. Because our new friends chose peace with us because we were strong enough that war was not worth the cost. We must maintain that strength. We must remain the species that others think twice about attacking. Only then will this peace last. Only then will our people remain safe. Grant out. The message was received by commanders across the solar system. On ships orbiting Earth, Mars, and the outer planets, captains read the Admiral's words and nodded in agreement. They understood. Peace through strength. Friendship through respect, safety through preparation. It was the human way. It had kept them alive through thousands of years of conflict with each other. Now it would keep them alive in a galaxy full of unknown dangers and opportunities. The USS Constitution, still commanded by Jake Morrison, continued its patrol routes along the border of human space. But now it flew alongside ships from other species, Zelthari cruisers with their elegant energy. Part 5 3 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. In that short time, everything had changed. Earth's fleet had grown to over 3,000 ships. Humans had established colonies on 12 worlds. Human technology had spread throughout the Alliance, making everyone safer and more prosperous. On the human colony world of New Seattle, Commander Steve Rogers taught a class at the newly established Galactic Military Academy. The academy was a joint project between Earth and its allies. It trained officers from all member species in combined warfare tactics. Steve was a veteran of the first contact incident with the Zelthari. He had been the tactical officer aboard the USS Kennedy during that tense time. Now he taught the next generation of officers how to work together across species lines. His classroom was full this morning. 20 students sat at desks watching him carefully. About half were human. The rest represented 6 different alien species. Among them was a young Zelthari male named Kelris, whose uncle had been part of the original scanning team that first analyzed the Constitution. Today we are going to discuss first contact protocols, Steve began, pacing in front of the large display screen. Specifically, we are going to talk about what happens when you meet a new species and have to make quick decisions about whether they are friendly or hostile. He activated the display, showing footage from the Zelthari encounter 3 years ago. This was humanity's first contact with an alien species. The Zelthari showed up with a battle fleet. They scanned our ships without permission. They refused to communicate at first. Everything about their behavior suggested hostile intent. Steve paused and looked at Kelris. Cadet Kelris, from your people's perspective, what was the Zelthari fleet trying to accomplish? Kelris stood up as was customary when answering a question. Sir, based on what I have learned from my uncle and other sources, the fleet was conducting reconnaissance for a possible invasion. They believed humans were primitive and would be easy to conquer. And what changed their minds? They scanned the USS Constitution and realized humans were far more advanced and dangerous than expected. Commander Vrakis made the decision to pursue diplomatic contact instead of military action. Exactly right. Sit down, cadet. Steve looked at the rest of the class. The first rule of first contact is to be prepared for anything. We got very lucky with the Zelthari. Commander Vrakis was smart enough to recognize when he was outmatched. He was wise enough to choose peace. But not every species you encounter will make that same choice. A human cadet named Carol Price raised her hand. Sir, the reports say the Zelthari fleet could have caused significant damage even if they ultimately lost the battle. Why do you say we got lucky? Good question, Cadet Price. Yes, we would have won that fight. But we would have lost ships. We would have lost crew members. People would have died on both sides. The fact that Commander Vrakis chose to stand down meant that human and Zelthari sailors all got to go home to their families. That is always preferable to victory at the cost of lives. But you were prepared to fight, a Corvan cadet observed. Absolutely. Being prepared to fight is what gave us the option not to fight. If we had been weak, the Zelthari might have attacked. If we had shown fear, they might have seen us as easy prey. Our strength, our readiness, and our obvious capability gave them a reason to choose peace. Steve looked around the classroom. That is the lesson I want you all to remember. We maintain our military not because we want to use it, but because having it gives us better options. Another student, a silicate named Harmonix, chimed with a question. Instructor Rogers, do you believe there will be another first contact situation that results in violence? Probably, Steve admitted honestly. The galaxy is enormous. There are thousands of species out there we have not met yet. Sooner or later we will encounter someone who cannot be reasoned with, someone who does not care about our strength, someone who attacks first and asks questions never. When that happens, we will do what humans have always done. We will adapt. We will fight. And we will win. What if we cannot win? Carol asked quietly. Steve's expression became very serious. Then we make sure the cost is so high that they regret starting the fight. We make them hurt so badly that they think twice before attacking anyone else. That is another lesson from our history, and it is an important one. Even when we lose battles, we never make it easy for the enemy. We never give up. We never stop fighting until the fight is over. The classroom was quiet. It was a sobering lesson, but an important one. After class ended, Kelris approached Steve with a question. Instructor, may I ask you something personal? Of course, Cadet. Do you hate the Zelthari for nearly attacking your world? Steve considered the question carefully. No, I do not hate your people. I understand why Commander Vrakis made the decisions he made. The Empire had conquered many worlds before encountering us. They had no reason to think we would be different. What I respect is that when Vrakis realized the truth, he changed his approach. He was smart enough to adapt. That takes wisdom and courage. My uncle says that encounter changed everything for the Empire. We realized we were not the strongest species in the galaxy. It was humbling. Being humble is not a bad thing, Steve said. It keeps you honest. It keeps you careful. And it helps you make better decisions. Far above New Seattle, in orbit around the colony world, a massive shipyard was under construction. It would be the largest facility outside the Sol system when completed. Human engineers worked alongside Zelthari technical specialists and Corvan designers to create something unprecedented, a joint construction facility that could build ships for any species in the Alliance. Captain Lisa Hayes, now promoted and commanding the new battleship called Defiance, watched the construction from her bridge. She had come a long way from being first officer on the Constitution. Now she commanded one of the most powerful ships in the fleet. Her executive officer, Commander Ryan Cooper, stood next to her. "It is impressive, Captain. That shipyard will be able to produce 20 ships simultaneously when it is finished. 20 ships that will protect this entire sector," Lisa agreed. "Ships built by multiple species working together. That is the future we are creating here. Do you think it will last, this peace?" Lisa thought about the question. She had been asked it many times over the past 3 years. "I think it will last as long as we remain strong enough that war is not an attractive option. The moment we become weak, someone will test us. That is just the nature of the universe. Strong species survive. Weak species get conquered or absorbed. That is a harsh view of things. It is a realistic view. History, both human and galactic, has proven it true over and over again." Lisa turned away from the window to face Ryan. "But here is what gives me hope. We are not just building ships out there. We are building relationships. We are training together, working together, protecting each other. Every day that passes, the bonds between our species get stronger. That matters more than any weapon." Back on Earth, in the headquarters of the Galactic Alliance Defense Force, Admiral Helen Grant was in a high-level meeting with military leaders from all the member species. The topic was expansion and exploration. The Alliance was planning to send exploration fleets into uncharted regions of space. "The question is not whether we should explore," Helen was saying. "The question is how we handle whatever we find out there. We need to have clear protocols for first contact situations." Vracus, now holding the rank of Fleet Admiral in the Alliance military, nodded in agreement. "I propose we use a model based on humanity's first contact procedures. Send a mixed fleet, show strength but offer friendship. Be prepared for war but hope for peace." A Corvan admiral named Vortis added his thoughts. "We should also be careful about making assumptions. The humans appeared primitive to us because they were confined to one system. We were very wrong. We should not make the same mistake with other species." "Agreed," Helen said. "We scan, we observe, we learn before we make contact. And we always maintain combat readiness." The meeting continued for several hours, developing detailed protocols and procedures. By the end, they had a comprehensive plan for exploration and first contact. Teams would be trained. Ships would be prepared. The Alliance would expand carefully but confidently into the unknown. On the edge of Alliance space, far from Earth, the USS Valiant prepared to depart on the first deep exploration mission. Captain Lisa Hayes stood on her bridge, looking at the stars ahead. Her crew was ready. Her ship was equipped with the best technology from 6 different species. They would be gone for 2 years exploring systems that no one had ever visited. "All departments report ready, Captain," Ryan announced. "Good. Communications, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we are departing on schedule." "Message sent, Captain." Lisa sat down in her command chair. This was what she had joined the Navy for. Not to fight wars, but to explore. To discover. To push the boundaries of known space and see what was out there. "Helm, set course for the coordinates provided by Science Division. Maximum cruise speed. Course set, Captain. Ready when you are." Lisa allowed herself a small smile. "Then let us see what is out there." "Take us out, Helm." The massive battleship accelerated smoothly, its powerful engines,